Emma, clearly, we love it when you are with us. And I was thinking while you were playing about how beautiful it is to be in the presence of your gift. And then I thought, but even walking in the door, yes, Joanne got here before I did. Even walking in the door and seeing your presence, being in your presence is very peaceful. Thank you for being here. Look at us. We got out of bed, took showers, most of us, showed up. Good morning. Welcome home. Welcome home indeed. Some of you have had the experience of, being away for a while and coming back, particularly my least favorite people who go away for a period of weeks to warmer climate and then come back. But you know that feeling when you walk in the door and there truly is a sense of openness and expansiveness, and these are peeps. Truly, it's good to be home. We had Lenten season and Easter in the last several weeks. How was your Lenten season? Any crucifixions among us? Any resurrections? Any tomb time? Pretty much every person that I've talked to is talking about this person named Laura Mead, who happens to be our board president. And when we sort of hastily planned my sabbatical time to be gone during Lent, I invited Laura to be the guest speaker for the Easter season. And it was sort of like the Virgin Mary moment. I said to her, we kind of nailed down okay, these are the sabbatical dates. This is, getting everything taken care of. And I said, are you interested in hearing who I'm thinking about for guest speaker for Easter series? And she said, yes. And I said, well, I think it would be you. Literally, she reared back in her chair, her jaw dropped, and she gasped, how can that be? And so the Virgin Mary scene flashed before my eyes. How can that be? So what I'm hearing, Laura, is that you did a phenomenal job. It was a lot to take on. Guest speaking in and of itself is, a pretty big deal. And doing a series is a bigger deal. And then taking on the Easter series is even more monumental. So I applaud your courage and your willingness to show up. So today I'm coming from the arena of complete vulnerability. I am returning. I returned actually Friday. We had a board retreat this weekend, which was truly a treat. I wish I had some of it on film to share on our website, but unfortunately I do not, so it shall remain in the bookstore. I'm sharing sabbatical insights because I am returning from, actually this time it was I planned a 40-day sabbatical because that number is very significant to me personally and in terms of spiritual awareness. 40, the period of time necessary for spiritual awakening. So it felt very important to have that many days. And essentially, I had done, most of my crucifixion and most of my suffering like prior to the Lenten season. So I really invested my season in tomb time, which is a time that we're having the opportunity to see our wounds, to notice them and, lick them and soothe them and heal them. And it's a time of significant and almost indescribable mystical transformation. It's nothing that we can plan or script or predict how it's going to go. In late January, February, some of you know that I took this crazy road trip to see various parts of my family, and it was about a 2,300-mile trip. Part of the trip was to adopt our third chow chow from my brother-in-law and driving her halfway across the country. So it turns out that in the aftermath of that trip, I realized that it really took a lot out of me, emotionally and physically and spiritually. So navigating through my work and navigating through life during the rest of February turned out to be a pretty steep challenge. And my first assumption was that depression had tossed me off the rails and that I needed to do something about that. So toward the end of the month, I talked with Laura and I talked with our board and kind of pulled the emergency cord on the bus and said, I need a sabbatical and I need it right now. And so it was all very hastily put together. I knew going into the sabbatical that I had 3 major intentions: deep, deep, deep rest and specific recovery, spiritual, emotional, mental, physical recovery. And I had a list of medical business to take care of. So we swiftly arranged this time. Once that's all arranged, let the mental mania games begin. Picture the hand wringing, the shortness of breath. What if a month isn't enough time? What if that's not enough time? What if I'm not going to be ready to come back? What if I don't feel recovered? What if I don't feel healed? What if I get to the end of the sabbatical and I feel like I just wasted it, like I blew my opportunity for healing? So that's the baggage that I packed to take with me. And I went to this solitude location, one of my very favorite places on earth. There's absolutely zero distraction. There is no internet, no, television and noise and traffic and no people. Nobody talking. Ever notice how much you talk to yourself when you're alone? There's a lot of noise. So that's all ideal, right? To be in this place of solitude and silence and no distraction. So it's up to us to just manufacture all of the distraction that we can. And the mania was pretty noisy. I would say I fully invested the first 10 days or so in guilt and shame over not being at work. I just took part of my sabbatical last August. Geez, it hasn't even been a year, and here I am already using another, and a lot of self-criticism. So here's my spiritual process when I'm doing that kind of work. Cleaning is good. Cleaning is good. So I started with vacuuming and dusting, and then I thought, let's just wash these floors. And wash the floors. Let's do a little, deep cleaning in the bathroom. Like, I didn't even realize how dirty stuff was until after I cleaned it. So this is like every day is a big cleaning project. I have tomorrow, I'm going to clean blah, blah, blah. So toward the, probably toward the end of that process of those 10 days, I thought, how metaphysical is this? So first we have to, do the vacuuming and the dusting, just kind of get the surface stuff taken care of so that there's a little more, space and clarity. Oh, I think before I wash the floors, I think it was important to clean the windows because there's such a beautiful view there, open space and trees and wildlife. So there was a day of cleaning some windows, and then it was washing the floors, which I generally do only just before I move. So I remember I used to say to my son, "Whoa, kitchen floor is dirty, time to move." So cleaning the floors, of course, floors, that which stands under, is about clearing our understanding and really creating a fresh slate for that. And then, of course, the deep cleaning in the shower and the toilet is all about cleansing and release, yes? Very important that we create a space for that. So the metaphysics of all of that was part of transformational moment number 1. Like, wow, I don't need to, I pray in very active ways, Cleaning was a real prayer for me. So finally, approached my first of 3 during the month, by the way, my first of 3 sessions with my spiritual mentor, my dearest Martha Creek. I called her and I wept just through the first hour and really just spilled all of the mental mania with some gusto. I don't know how we got there. I don't know what happened, but for some reason we're talking about the fact that I can't float. I can't back float. And for those of us that grew up in this area and did the Red Cross swimming lessons, first you face float and then you back float. And then when you progress beyond that, you go to these other, I could never back float, so I never got advanced to any of the other steps. And I do remember getting an ear infection pretty much every year. So I'm talking to Martha about the situation of not being able to float. And my son and daughter-in-law got married in a beautiful area in Mexico in 2005, the year that I was ordained. So we're down there for the wedding. We're on a beachside hotel. And Bill and I, my spouse and I, walk into the ocean. And Bill's like, you can float here. And I'm like, I can't float anywhere. He's like, no, really, you can float in the ocean. It holds you up. Well, I didn't believe that. So, and for those of you that don't know Bill, he's a foot taller than me and, big guy, big hands and big arms. And so he said, here, I'll show you. So he held me up and I laid on my back in the ocean and he talked to me for a moment. And he said, okay, I'm going to let go. And I floated. I'll always remember that feeling with Bill's hands and without Bill's hands, that feeling of being fully supported. And the ocean is one of my favorite places, elements on earth. Being in this vast ocean and looking at this infinite sky and the realization of, I can float. I live in a friendly universe. I am fully supported. Transformational moment number 2, I can float. And from that phone call going forward, I could breathe. I found oxygen. I found deep breaths. I was in the expansiveness of open space, and I could I could be there. I could see it. I could feel it. I could realize it. And this vice grip of life was literally loosening and opening up. And it was a distinct inner shift. I knew I would feel better after I talked with Martha, but beyond that I had, not a lot of expectation. So I was walking later that day after I talked with her, and just so aware that my lungs were opening and my ribs were opening, my chest was expanding, and realizing that I could really flail in the water of life, or I could begin to once again touch the truth. I can float. I live in a friendly universe. I am always and in all ways fully supported. Now remember that I said one of my intentions was taking care of this medical business. A few months ago, my GP, general practitioner, had written orders for 2 different wellness tests, and had also written an order for physical therapy for my shoulders, which I've only been in pain since maybe 2006, 2007. And so I had an appointment with my GP to check the medication, because remember my first assumption was, wow, this depression has really taken me off the rails. So I had seen my GP, was undergoing those changes in medication. I actually got on the phone and set appointments and had those 2 other test situations taken care of, and had not yet scheduled the 3rd piece of it. Took care of seeing my massage therapist, which I am good about doing in my regular life, and seeing my chiropractor, and my chiropractor sees all these red flags, and she's like, what is going on with you? I said, I don't know. I'm just like, not good. So she said, well, what happened? The Sunday after I returned from that Chicago and New Jersey trip, it was that Friday night, we had a little freezing rain, and we had a little skiff of snow on Saturday, a little skiff of snow on Sunday. I had worked Sunday, and we walked the pup Sunday afternoon like we usually do. So I had both the girls. Bill had Rufus, and he was out ahead of me. We're walking down this lane to walk in the woods, and I saw my feet in front of my face, and I landed on the ice on my head. And so I laid there, I don't know, I don't think it was very long. I laid there, and I was rolling over because there was a little incline to get up in the yard, and I thought I need to climb up there to get on the grass. And Bill was trotting back with Rufus, and I don't know what happened to the dog leads. I'm sure they went out of my hand. And I'm rolling over, and I said to Bill, I think I hit my head. And he said, I heard it. And he was like from here to the foyer from me. So I don't remember if we did the walk or not, but anyway, I stood up and we went home. So I'm telling this to my chiropractor, and she goes, well, when was that? And I said, oh, I don't know, about a month ago. And she said, did you get that checked out? And I'm like, no. And she said, please. And it's interesting because the optometrist that she sent me to happens to be my optometrist that I've seen for years. So did that appointment, went back out to my little spot, and spent the next maybe 4 or 5 days having dialogue about, I don't want to make another phone call. I don't want to make another appointment. I don't want to have one more thing to take care of. I mean, wouldn't it be okay? That was a month ago. Like, it's all better. And one morning I woke up and said, I'm going to make that appointment. So I did. Interesting, a month to the day after the fall, I'm in my optometrist's office. They do this testing, and she comes in to see me, and she said, so tell me about this fall. So I did, and she ran down this little list of questions, and she said, you have every symptom of brain injury. I was like, well, that explains a lot. And she showed me the printout from the testing. She owns the operation next door, which is called Vision in Motion. And she said, are you willing to do some therapy? I said, yes. So I've been doing brain therapy for not quite a month now, and it's fascinating. So somehow, somewhere in there, I dialed up the motivation to also call and schedule the physical therapy stuff on my shoulder. So I've got brain therapy, I've got shoulder therapy. Cindy, you'll be glad to know I amped up my yoga time because that's huge with balance. So at this point in my sabbatical, I'm giving like almost daily attention to my physical body, which is, I mean, I'm a regular exerciser, but like giving attention is different. So these appointments that I'm doing, and they're asking, so, when did you fall? Well, just a month ago. How long? How long have your shoulders been hurting? Oh, I don't know, maybe 2006, 2007. And they're like, excuse me? And I'm sitting there thinking, this is embarrassing. Because I just had given it basically no thought. So during this period, I'm thinking to myself, when did I decide that it's okay to ignore my physical health? When did I decide that that was okay? What had brought me to believing that it wasn't important? And then I was triggered by something that Martha said in one of our sessions. I don't remember if it was the first or second one, but we were talking about, coming back from the depths of burnout and stressed out and so forth. And she said something along the lines of, you can go to work and sustain healthy balance. And I heard that. It's not the first time we've had this conversation, and I've been working on this in degrees, but that triggered me and stayed with me, that word sustain. The running joke of my life is, well, Brenda goes 1,000 miles an hour or she's face down in bed. And it's really no joke. I've always made it a joke and recognized that that's how I live and that's okay. And realizing in this whole mix of things that is happening during this Lenten season, realizing that I'm not okay with that. I don't know if any of us has ever had, transformation and awareness and awakening where we look at how we're doing something in life and we just look in the mirror and go, that's not okay. I'm not going to keep doing that. So as Grace would have it, I took out a fairly small stack of books with me. And this is the third book that I got to. It's called Living in Balance. So I'm doing all these interesting exercises in my brain therapy, and one of the fun ones is standing on this teeter-totter board and keeping it balanced while you have your hands on a thick rope and you're squatting, pulling down the rope, which is on a pulley. And then when you come back up, you have to shift your hands. And then on the third round, you're reading letters off of a chart while you're balancing on the teeter board and pulling on the pulley and switching your hands. And I can do that. It'd be a fun test, wouldn't it, to see how many of us could? One of the things that I can't do, I call it a whoopee cushion. I think she calls it a Dinah cushion. But you stand on this little pillow that really isn't full of air, and you get to balance while you're punching pictured dots on a board. Green left hand, right is red, and you're doing that while you're standing on this cushion. So she held me up, still does, holds me up the entire time I'm doing that. Balance, it turns out, is a really big deal. Does anyone here ever struggle with that? Literally, like finding balance. And I had been noticing about myself, my physical balance. Anybody ever do a standing tree in yoga? One of my favorite positions. And it's been interesting to be with that position. So transformational moment number 3 slowly dawns on me while I'm doing this outside in work. The foundation of my burnout, stressed out, mental depression, physical exhaustion, spiritual exhaustion, the foundation of that is a story that I've been living pretty much since I began ministry work. And here's the story. Ministry is hard. It's really hard. I have to give it absolutely everything I have. And that's still not enough. So from the get-go, I've been living, I remember where I was sitting when this realization came to me. From the get-go, I think that I've been living under the assumption that the ministry was eventually literally going to kill me, and that I would just stick with that and let that happen, because it's kind of like an honorable discharge, right? Like dying in the service of my peeps. And I really don't want to over dramatize that, but just the perceptions that were going on in my mind. And I realized that's not okay. Seriously, not okay. And here's the interesting thing that came to me is I never questioned that. I just believed it. Has to be hard. Have to give it 150%, no matter what. Just keep pushing through, whether you have the energy or not, whether you have the wherewithal, whether you have whatever, just push through it. In that first tear-stained conversation with Martha, she said at one point, she said, well, who are you letting down? And I said, well, just the whole congregation. Oh. Transformational moment number 4. Several days later, I was thinking about that conversation, who I'm letting down. We can't think we're letting someone down unless there's an expectation involved, yes? Expectations. We need to do another message on that. That's a big box of trouble. So here's what was going on. In fact, another very dear friend of mine at one point said to me, well, whose expectations are you meeting? That was a brilliant question. And I said, the congregation. And I was sitting one day and I thought, that's not their expectation. You know, truthfully, I have no idea what you expect of me. None. I think you expect me to show up on a regular basis. I think you expect me to be up here in some sort of prepared semblance. I don't know. Do you expect that or not? So I'm sitting there thinking, I've been holding the mirror backwards for a decade, telling myself I am striving to meet their expectations. I have, for a decade, failed to meet my expectations. Think about that in your life circle. I have failed to meet my expectations. There's so much in this book. I call it my new Bible. There's an interesting tip in here where the basic premise is we catch ourselves in a situation, in a thought, in a paradigm, in a belief, and here's the pause button. That story doesn't have to happen. I do not have to physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually bury myself because I am chosen for ministry. Talk about a tsunami of fresh air. Transformational moment number 4. So I'm aware that right now, my main requirement is to live in balance, which of course covers, a whole lot of ground. And it's been so metaphysical that I'm rebalancing my brain and regaining physical balance. It's fascinating. We'll do a certain exercise and I'll ask her what we're working on. Well, this is the amygdala, and I'm like, that sounds really great. So I am arising from my tomb, realizing that I am a new minister, and coming home today has been indescribable, really indescribable. And I've learned in that realization number 4 that it truly is not only okay, it is necessary, it is critical that I have on my oxygen mask first, that airplane thing. And I also know that I can set a pace for the marathon. And that pace includes, how about eating meals? And how about having your first meal of the day not be at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night? Includes sleep, which is a real circus for me. It includes family. In our last conversation with Martha, when I was sharing this realization and this opportunity in this window, and I said, I have blah, 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 and she did not skip a beat, and she said, yes, honey, and you've done that at the expense of your husband, your marriage, your family, your health. That was interesting to hear. I can commit to creating a path in life for doing what interests me in my ministry, in my life, in how I use my time. And I can serve with, now that we've cleared that window, that mirror of expectation, false expectation, that I can serve with satisfaction and fulfillment. Who I am today is enough. How I showed up is enough. Can we walk away from our work, from a family encounter, from an encounter with a friend, and deeply know that it was enough? I am enough. And I can serve without that story of overfunctioning driving the bus. We may come back to this book. We'll see what the future brings. I want to, as we are rolling into meditation, and I'll probably read this twice, I want to share this quote from a person named Stefan Richthofen. Open your rib cage and your lung cage and pull your shoulders back a little bit. Knowing that we are fully supported. I believe that just being conscious of our ability to shift our rhythms within the fabric of a frenetic society will make our hours less anxious, our days less stressful, and our lives more complete. I'm going to repeat that. Just being conscious of our ability to shift our rhythms within the fabric of a frenetic society will make our hours less anxious, our days less stressful, and our lives more complete. It will, simply enough, make us happier. Happiness has a rhythm. Happy people seem to live less frenetically. They have more time in their lives. They are more in the moment. This happiness is available to all of us. Our ability to shift our rhythms within the fabric of a frenetic society. I invite a complete breath as far down from your tummy as you can draw, and bringing that flow, that energy of life up through our abdomen and our rib cage and our lungs and our neck and our head. I know I am breathing in. And as we gently release that flow, that life-giving oxygen, I know I am breathing out. What is available to us and what is at our fingertips is an awareness of breath. What if that's all we needed to know in this moment? And breathing in. And breathing out. Wow. I can float. Don't ever let anybody tell you you can't float. We live in a friendly universe. The universe is on our side. God is on our side. Life is on our side. And so whatever our visual is, if it's lying in the grass in warm sunshine, if it's making a snow angel, if it's floating in beautiful ocean water, looking up at a sky that has no end, I can float. And so it is. Amen. Thank you, too.